All right, so I'm on the couch last night and I am tuning in on YouTube. So I'm not watching wide TV. I've modernized this. And I see breaking news is they've updated and are making changes to superannuation. Now, this is something I've actually been putting a lot of thought into recently because I've been considering, and this is definitely not financial advice, but making changes to the way I'm doing super and contributions and setting myself up for those later years. I'll leave that there. Need no one know my strategy or copy it. And honestly, I can't risk saying it on the podcast because I could get into trouble for that. But what has occurred, and I wonder if this is the universe giving me hints, is that the government that's in right now, the Labor government, are looking to make changes to how superannuation works. Now, in particularly, and you could probably gauge by the idea that I was fired up about this, not in a good way, in my opinion.
For business owners, not in a good way.
Well, I don't think in a good way for anyone. So let's go over some of the changes first, and then we can cover more of my outrage and me standing up. Remote in hand, by the way, pointing at the screen, standing up, going, anyway, we'll leave that there. We can cover that in more depth.
It was a show. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
All right, so these are some of the things they're looking to change. So number one is that they're looking to put a limit on how much you can put into super. So a $3 million cap. So going, once you have more than $3 million in super, we're going to change how this is taxed. It's not going to be a tax haven for people, which is what they're deeming it as. I'm not sure it's a tax haven for people, but we'll leave that there. The second one they're looking at is changing the contributions. So currently as it stands, you can put in $27,500 as a, what I think they call a concessional contribution, which means it's a tax deduction in summary, where they're potentially, and I've only heard rumors of this, they were considering lowering it to 20, right? Again, changing how the tax works. And then even further is potentially looking at how things are taxed while inside super. So currently capital gains and income are taxed at 15%, and they're considering looking at that in another way. Now, there are some other changes about which I think may even be positive overall, is just around for people that have taken time out of the workforce, for like mums and stuff, about equalizing how super works. There could be some good things in there. But the point I really want to highlight here is that they're looking at making relatively significant changes to how superannuation actually works. And I think this is really dangerous. And I'm a bit angry about it.
Especially because you're trying to lean in hard into it.
All right, so let's go through a little bit of the why I'm so angry about this. We've all been contributing to our super since we've been working. Right? I started work at 16, right? So literally, how old am I now? 34? What's that, 18 years ago? All right, so 18 years ago, I started contributing to superannuation under the promise of what it was when I was 16 years old. Now, all these years later, they're looking to make changes to that I didn't agree to back then.
Yep.
Right. So these are what is it called? Retrospective changes. Now, bringing this to why I think this is such an important topic to business owners is that if you've been investing in your super and potentially getting financial advice from a financial advisor who's telling you to go, hey, put money into super, this is why it's a really good thing to you, only to years later for this to be getting changed, who's to blame?
Yep.
Like, you got advice from a financial advisor and did what, ASIC and all these places are asking you to do, right? All these rules that have been enforced. And then even though you played by the rules, they're going, well, no, we're kind of going to, well, I'm just going to say it, screw you.
We want the money now, Charlie, and we know where a whole heap of money is stored. Let's go there and take the money from there.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think a really good question is, why is the government looking to make these changes? Is because they have problems with tax, right? They're trying to find ways to increase tax revenue. This is really the outcome they want, is for their budget and surplus to change, or for there to be a surplus.
Completely.
So that's why they're doing it.
But don't you find this interesting that they're just going for, and they're always going for the high income earners, right? Like I was reading through this and like, oh, well, it's not going to impact most people because most people have 150K sitting in super. And like, it's only gonna impact the top 1% earners, Charlie. It's
sure.
fine.
Doesn't that sound like, just to be clear, income tax was only meant to be around after World War II to pay for the war,
Very
right?
short term. Yeah.
Yeah, it's short term. Fascinating.
Everything is like this gateway to a change, because
What?
then it's like, this is all we need to do is try and find something that everybody's accepting, and then we get to iteratively change and improve on top of it, or not improve, just change.
Well, it's so much more than that, though, right? I don't like what this sets up in Australia in general of going, don't strive. Right? Don't try and do anything astronomical, because if you do, what we're going to do is tax you more, and we're going to get, if you create something special in this country, we're just going to, raid some of your money and disperse it differently.
Mm.
And I don't like the idea of disincentivizing people that want to strive. Like, I would actually love it if more people in Australia strived to do exceptional things and they get rewarded. I'd love a reverse tax system, right? It's like, you know what? The more you make, the lower your tax rate. Because do you know what would suddenly happen? We'd motivate this entire country to start doing special things.
Totally.
When we create motivations around doing less, right? And there's a really good example of this about retirees who would want to work, but they don't, because they don't want to mess with their pension. I'm like, we literally have people that want to contribute to productivity in the country, and we go, no, we'll tamper with your super if you do that. Or if a mum, right, someone who has a kid, they can't go back to work because it'll affect their childcare support. So they sit there and go, well, I'm not going to go work because it would actually tamper with my support. And it's like, there's endless examples of people not striving and not doing things because it's disincentivized.
Yeah. It was the same with like the payments that people without jobs got recently, where it was more than what they were getting paid if they were working in restaurants, cafes, etc. Like, they were completely disincentivized to actually do better and strive for better. But don't you find this has just been the case regularly? Like, the government always kind of pushes down on going, where's the easiest place for us to take money from that the majority won't be pushing back on? And you always hear them refer to like top 1%. Like, it just impacts the top 1%. It's always cutting down the tall poppy, like, because that's where majority of the votes are, not tall poppies.
I do think that exists to some reason. It's probably like, I think as a government, if like reversing this, and what do they call it? Steel manning.
Steel manning, yeah.
Right. Like if I was old Chalmers here and I'm looking at it, I'm going to go, where can I get the most support to get something over the line?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not sitting there and going, what's right for the country? I'm going, what's going to get the vote? And I suspect that's how they're playing it from here. I just think they're massively not considering the impacts of this.
Especially for the top 1%. Because to that point, like, if you look at the law of averages, everybody has approximately $150,000 in super.
Yeah, but it's not about the top 1%. Right. So let's make this a different thing, right? So they might be thinking, top 1%, this is a great thing to target. But who do they actually target? All the people that could potentially become the top 1%.
But this is the point. This is their sales strategy. But the challenge that you're articulating quite well is the point around, it just breaks this complete trust. It's like, well, we want to strive. We want to do something better. And in exchange for us doing something better, a great feedback mechanism is earning some money. And now you have said that a great place for us to put said money that we have earned is in said super funds to make sure that we have something for retirement. Noting that we don't actually get the money until 60, 65, depending on sort of when we get it. And so it's like, we trust you not to change the way it currently exists, and we will strive for the best, and you will look out for us on the other side. It's almost like when that trust is broken, what else are you going to change? What else are you going to break? Like, that's what's been broken now within, to your point, 14 years since you started contributing. What about for the next 20 years?
Yeah, I've been contributing for 18 years.
18 years, sorry.
And even then at 34, think of how many more I've got to contribute for before I can actually potentially touch this.
But that's the thing, right? So it's like, well, now if you're breaking it here, as we're starting to think about like utilizing this mechanism, what else are you going to change over the next decade if you were to change it every decade? Hey, fellow business owner, if this topic and value-packed short video has resonated with you at all, and you want to dive deeper into creating wealth inside and outside your business, check out the full episode by clicking the link on your screen or in the description right now.